Okay. Hi, Dionisio. Thank you so much for being here, first of all.
Hi, Rahul.
And just a quick overview for all the attendees and panelists here. So, our focus of today is to try to understand how do we balance speed, performance, and security with code quality? How do we not allow vulnerabilities to slip into production? And how Q1 can empower development teams throughout the SDLC with early detection and static code analysis, getting security insights to meet compliance, and then how do we boost delivery without slowing down developers, and how all of this integrates into the pipeline so that a continuous improvement of deliverables is achieved overall. And to this end, we have Dionisio with us, who is our in-house cybersecurity expert. And I think I would like Dionisio to introduce himself. He,
Okay,
uh, he has a very vast experience in multiple regions, securing a lot of teams. And please, Dionisio.
sure. Thank you, Rahul. Well, thank you for your attendance, everybody. I appreciate your time. My name is Dionisio Barboza, and I'm working with Sambi, Idera, this is the holding, but more specifically with Q1 right now as a sales engineer. And I've been in the industry for the last 4 years. I start by providing sales engineer support in the Q1 platform, but now I've been moving in other platforms of the company, like Dotfuscator, where we protect binaries. So that's part of cybersecurity, of course. And we also work with the QA tools like Ranorex for automate testing and X-ray. So it's a whole portfolios of applications that we can use on the DevSecOps industry. Rahul, if we are happy to proceed, then I can start showing the platform.
Yeah, yeah, please. Eager
Okay,
to
good,
see.
good. So before showing the platform, I would like to tell you exactly what I'm gonna show. First is talk a little bit of Q1, how is Q1 working, what is Q1 doing, and then we show the platform. I'm gonna start sharing my screen, and please let me know once you have the signal. Okay.
Yeah, your screen
Okay.
is visible.
Great, great. Let me minimize this. And let me go to the Q1 portal. So what is Q1? Q1 is, sorry, this is Spanish. I'm in Spanish. Q1 is a SaaS platform, so we are very shiftless. And what we do with Q1 is to identify vulnerabilities that might be impacting the security of your projects and also the quality of the project in terms of reliability, maintainability, and other ISO standards for quality. Q1 works as a static analyzer. So that means you will scan the code that you are developing and not the code that you're executing. So that is where we specialize. The way Q1 works is in a hybrid model. That's the best way to use Q1, and most of our clients are using that mode. And how is the hybrid mode working? Well, it's very simple. We have a web or a cloud portion, which is this web page that we have in the screen. And then we have this platform, which is the Q1 local analyzer. The Kiuwan local analyzer is a Java program, so you can use in multiple platforms as long as you have the Java virtual machine installed. And what the Q1 local analyzer is going to do is to locally scan the applications or projects that you have. So this takes advantage first of the power of your hardware, and second, it will also keep your files on your site, on your premise, so it will preserve the privacy and security of the files. What we do is to download the engine of the platform, of the Q1 platform. Then all the rules are executed locally, and when the scan is finished, is encrypted and uploaded to the cloud. So what you have in the cloud is only metrics. To use Q1, you will need to have an account. Then you have to go to the web of Q1, log in. Once you're in, then you will be able to download the Q1 local analyzer. It's a zip folder, you uncompress it, and then execute. In this section, or well, before it, of course, you need to do a login. If there is any update, it will automatically apply the update. It always do a discovery process. And when everything is complete, then you can set the scan for the project. You put an application name here. If this is not the first time you're scanning the application, you can see the list of applications already on board in the drop-down list. Then you select what is the root folder of the application. You select what is the analysis scope. If you want to do a first scan or a full scan because you're going to send this version to a production, then you do a baseline. If you want to do incremental scan, then you can do a partial or complete delivery, which will basically detect the changes done on a baseline. Let's take to the baseline, and here is where we identify the analysis. Any name can be placed here. Personally, I like to recommend the versioning name. So if this is the first time you're scanning the application, you put version 1. If you are just scanning to find changes based on the things you fix on the baseline, then you can select the delivery and put version 1.1, 1.2, because it's an incremental scan at the end of the day. When you put all the data that the Kiuwan is asking for, you hit continue, and then you select what do you want to use to scan the project that you have. So code security and code analysis is what we call SAST. So when we talk about SAST, it's vulnerabilities and code quality defects. Both come together. So if you disable the check for code security and code analysis, it will disable everything. If you enable it, will enable everything in this section. Then we have another solution, which is Insights. And this is a separate product, but it's controlled in the same platform, is managed in the same platform. Insight is what we call in the industry SCA, software composition analysis, and it will look for the open source libraries that you have in the project, and we look for information like vulnerabilities, versioning, and license information for these components that you have in the configuration file of your project. Then you hit analyze, wait for a couple of minutes, and Kiuwan will tell you that the scan is finished. When the scan is finished, then you can come back to the web platform and see the results of this scan. So this is how a result will look like. We have the application name on the left panel. Then we have the summary of the quality or security. In this case, it's security. We tell you what is the rating, 1 of 5 stars. In this case, very bad. We have to always aim to the 5-star security rating. We tell you the vulnerability is discovered and distributed by its severity. It goes from very high down to low, and each security rating star is associated with a severity on the vulnerability matrix. It's not associated with the number of vulnerabilities. So as soon as we detect one or more very high vulnerabilities on the project, then they will be down to 1 star. If on the next scan we are able to remediate all the very high vulnerabilities, but we have a couple of high vulnerabilities, and you will be in 2-star security rating, and so forth. The effort is an estimated time that you have to invest in the project to get a better security rating. You might be wondering, okay, where is this time coming from? And it's a very good question if you have it, because this time is coming from our own development department. When we are creating a new rule, when we are developing a new rule, we test the rule against the vulnerability. And while we are testing this rule, we are also benchmarking the time to remediate the vulnerability. When we get that remediation time, we put that remediation time on the rule, and it's available for the customers. This is a behavior that can be modified, where you can change the way your Kiuwan platform is detecting vulnerabilities, or basically how is the vulnerability classified in the models management. Here's where you can create or basically enable a rule set of rules for a specific language or a specific normative. And when you create your own rule set, you can also change the remediation time. So if you consider that, for example, remediating a vulnerability associated with or for um, SQL injections, is taking less time that the platform says, then you can modify this as well. So it can be more precise to your needs. Scrolling down, we will see the lines of code. In Kiuwan, we have a licensing system that is based on lines of code. You buy a number of lines of code that you can scan on a year. And here's where we tell you how many lines of code is this project consuming from your yearly lines of code license. We tell you the number of files, the number of vulnerabilities, top 10 of worst vulnerabilities with basically worst rating and more findings in the project, the worst files, top 10 worst files, and we also have a timeline that tells you what is the evolution in terms of security for this project across the different baseline scans that we located on a calendar. If you want to look for scans that were already executed, then you can select the start date and end date on the calendar, and Kiuwan will retrieve all the information about the scans that were executed on that range of days. Then it will connect each scan with two vectors. One is the security rating vector and total effort. Total effort will change depending on the number of lines of code and also the number of vulnerabilities. The more vulnerabilities you have, the more lines of code you have, the more is the total effort. The less vulnerabilities you have and you detect less and less on the next scan, then you will see how the security rating, sorry, how the total effort will go down and down. Security rating is associated with the number of stars. So as soon as we get 2 stars, for example, in this project, then we will see how the security rating will go a little bit up. And if we have 5-star security rating, then you will see how the security rating vector will be on the top. So that is how this timeline works. For any information that you want to get from previous analysis, then you can always open the drop-down menu, click on any analyze, and it will refresh the information to the information of that analyze. Let's jump to vulnerabilities so we can see exactly what is being detected in this project. We have, again, this is the name of the project that we are looking at the results. And the first thing we have is the distribution of vulnerabilities by type, language, and priority. How many rules are detecting all the vulnerabilities that we have in the system? How many of these are very high? And again, the security rating that we had in the summary. So if we keep scrolling down, we will see that we got the list of rules that are detecting vulnerabilities. This is one rule, this is another rule, and so far and so forth. Sorry. If you want to get more information about the rule, why is this rule being considered as a vulnerability, you can always open the question mark, and this is an assistant that will tell you why are we considering this vulnerability or this situation of vulnerability. We tell you how the rule is working, what are the normatives that we are following for this rule. If you need some technical documentation about the vulnerability beyond Kiuwan, then you have the common weakness enumeration, and you have the reference to that article in the common weakness enumeration link. More information like benefits, parameters, but what is really good about this question mark or this helper is that you have the violation and fixed code example. Remember that your code is always on your end. It's not on the cloud end. So this is one snippet and this other snippet. This is an example that we are providing to all the customers for this rule. Every rule on every language will have its own example on how to remediate. For example, this is an error that tells you that you are not closing the resource of the database after using it. So we see that it's for Java, it is calling the classes, it's establishing the connection, and then it's executing the query, but nothing else happened afterwards. What we have here in the second example is that we do the same procedure, but we are adding a finally try catch to close any connection that we have in that block of code. So that way we are remediating the vulnerability. Now, if I want to know what is affected or where are these vulnerabilities within my project, then I can expand the information of the rule, I can click on the rule itself, and then it will show me all the files that are affected by these vulnerabilities. If I expand the information of the vulnerability or of the file affected, then I will get the information in a more granular way. I can get the lines of code that are affected by the vulnerability. I get the number of line of code, and this is the only thing that is uploaded to the results, which is the information of the line of code that is triggering a vulnerability. If you're on a very strict scenario where you don't want to show this information, not even in the line of the vulnerability, you can always, before executing the analyze, you can untick this option, and Kiuwan will not show the content of the line. It will tell you what is the vulnerability, what is the file, what is the number of the line of code for that vulnerability, but it will not give you the information of the line of code. I mean, the content of the line of code. You can mute the vulnerabilities, the rules. You can mute the files. If you want to mute a single vulnerability, you mute it. If you want to mute the file, you mute it. If you want to mute the whole rule, then you can mute it. This is how a muted rule looks like. It's not removed from the report, but it's removed from the metrics. So the vulnerabilities that are detected, for example, with this rule, will not impact the metrics, but you have access to the information of that vulnerability on the project or sorry, on the results. If you want to filter the vulnerabilities based on its characteristics, on the vulnerability type, language, you have multiple filters here. So for example, if I want to filter by a vulnerability of the, let me see, injection. All right, so we have injection. And if you see there's like a new button with 3 layers, that is because injection is a type of vulnerability that can be propagated on different parts of the project. So when you have a propagation of a vulnerability, then you can get this option, which is the propagation path. And it's a very useful option because it will tell you where is the trigger point or the source of this vulnerability, what is the propagation itself, and where is this propagation ending or the sink of the propagation. So it will help you to decide where to start. You will not be doing random remediations, but you can always target to the source. And if you remediate the source, of course, whatever is connected to the source will be also remediated. So it's a very useful tool that we have for this. Now we have the action plans, and with the action plans, what we do is to create a list of vulnerabilities that we can delegate to a developer, and that developer will have this information track. You have the action plan track, and you see what's the progress of the action plan, what's the pending effort of the action plan. Basically, you see what's the progress of this developer against its action plan. To create the action plan, you can create a new action plan, which is basically the same list of vulnerabilities, but you have a checkbox on each file, and you can select what file would you like to select for this action plan. You have a wave that it's a simulator and tells you instead of selecting vulnerabilities and save it on an action plan, what you can do is use an estimated time, how much time you can invest in the project. So you put the time that you can invest, you hit simulate. Kiuwan will tell you what will be the output. I mean, what will be the situation in terms of security if you invest 300 hours in this project. You will see, sorry, you will see no information in terms of security rating, but you see that even though we have the same security rating, we reduce the vulnerabilities. We went from very high, 676 vulnerabilities to 6. And that's a huge improvement of the quality or of the security because you're only 6 vulnerabilities away from the 2-star security rating. If you're okay with this simulation and you want to see what is being remediated on this time, you can keep scrolling down and you see the different vulnerabilities that are covered in this time that you can invest. All right, then you can save the action plan. You put the information like name, description, who's gonna be responsible for this action plan, and an expiration date. Then, when you save the action plan, you will see it reflected here in the action plan list. So that is code security. Then we have code analysis, which is for quality. It's pretty much like code security, but we are including other vectors like efficiency, maintainability, portability, reliability, and of course, security. As this is not a single vector, what we do is to create an average value. It goes from 0 to 100. And to calculate that average value, we have to consider that every vector here has its own value from 0 to 100. So we sum and divide among 5, and you will get a global indicator. This global indicator will tell you how good is the coding practices of your team for this application, and it goes from 0 to 100. The closer it is to 100, this global indicator, then the better practices you have, coding practices. Having a low global indicator is not always having an exposed application to attacks or that you are at risk. What will tell you if you're at risk is the risk index. The risk index tells you that there are some things you are not paying attention that will create risk on your application. Risk might be an attack or an exploit, or maybe a problem with the performance of the application given the bad quality of the code. So it's the opposite in this case. The closer it is to 100, the worse is the risk index. The effort to target is higher than in code security because we are not only looking for security, but also more quality vectors. Then we have some metrics about quality, the same information about line of code. We have the timeline, which works the same as in code security, just that we are replacing the security rating vector for the risk index and the global indicator. But the basics are the same. It connects one scan with other and creates a graphic based on this connection. If you want to know what are the defects in terms of quality, then you go to defects, and you have a very similar list to the list of code security. You have the distribution by characteristic, language, and priority. You have the information of the rules that are detecting the defects. If you want to know where is the defect, again, you expand information from the rule, then you get the files, and then from the files, you get the lines of code that are considered as quality defects. These defects can be muted individually per file, or the whole rule can be muted on this process. So the way to manage the defects is the same as in code security. Action plans are created the same way as well. So these two modules is what we call SAST. These other modules, what I was talking of, this other solution, but controlling the same platform, which is Insights. And here's where we look for components. Now it's important to know that this is a different technology or a different tool, and the compatibility of technologies might differ. For example, in Q1, when we talk about SAST, we cover up to or more than 30 languages with frameworks. With Insights, we cover half of this. We cover between 14 or 15 languages. We are planning to increase the compatibility with technologies, but that is the current status. So it's important to know this because sometimes you might find information in your own code, but you are not looking at any information related with components. It might be because of this compatibility situation between Insights and the SAST. Now, talking about this solution of Insights, what it's going to do is to go to the configuration file of the project. For example, this is a Java project, so we are looking at the POM files. If I open this component, I will see that it is coming from a POM file. So each item on this list is a component. From each component, we got the source, where is this component coming from, how many vulnerabilities are affecting this component. We have the CVE reference, CWE if available. We have short information about, or short description about these vulnerabilities, and the severity of the vulnerabilities. We always take the highest severity as the average severity indicator for security in a component. So in this case, we have 5 vulnerabilities. One of these is critical, so we are taking that as the security risk. The next thing we can see is the obsolescence, and here's where we tell you how up to date is the component compared with the versions that are out in the market from the developer of the component. To show this, I will expand one of the components, and here we have this component which is Nodep. So what we see when we expand the component is that we got a timeline, and the timeline is going to tell you what is the first version of the component, what is the latest version of the component, and what is the version that you're currently using. So from this graphic, we can see that we are very out of date on the version that we have. If you want to see all the information of the timeline in plain text, you can click show all versions, and then you will see the information in text of the different versions. Now, what we can understand from this graphic is that first, we are out of date. So we might need to update this component to the latest version to remediate all the vulnerabilities. Let's suppose that is a possibility. And let's suppose also that we are not going to have any syntax issue because the syntax is the same from the version that we are using to the latest version. That is good because we don't have to change the code. However, that might be a temporary solution because we have to always pay attention to the second vector, which is time and activity. And if you carefully see, you see that the component hasn't received any newer version on the last 6 years. So probably the component is on the road to be abandoned. That is why we have red and red here, red flags in both indicators. So if you can update to the latest version to remediate the vulnerabilities, that's fine, but probably the best option is to find another component that is doing the same, or if possible, just code the functionality of the component by yourself. So that is how obsolescence is working. Any information that you see in components, obsolescence, license, or security tab can be downloaded. If you click on this hamburger button, you can download the information. This hamburger button is also available in code security for the summary of vulnerabilities, for the list of vulnerabilities. You can always export a lot of information from Kiuwan. The next section in this insights tool is licenses, and here's where we tell you the licenses that are in use by the different components. So we are not going to make a list of the components, but we are going to make a list of the licenses detected. If you want to know what are the components using a specific license, for example, a patch license 2.0, I just click on the license and I get the information of the 51 components. Here I got again the name of the component, version, description, and if there is any risk. What kind of risk? Well, you have the different type of risk here: copyright, license, whole liable, trademarks, any risk that might be exposing your company to any financial or legal consequences will be explained here. If you want to double check the information about the license, you can always click on the URL of the SPDX and it will take you to the draft of the contract. So you can hand over this draft to your legal department and they will tell you, you know, it's fine, trust the platform. Kiuwan is telling that there is no risk. There is no risk on the contract. All right, that's fine. Or maybe your legal department found a paragraph that is hiding something about the risk of the license and they could tell you, you know, pay attention to this paragraph and change the policies of the component in Kiuwan. You can edit the policies of the component in Kiuwan if you click modify policies. So that is what licensing is doing. And then we have code security, component security, where we look at the vulnerabilities. We already saw some information about the vulnerabilities here in the component section, but here we go deeper. So we have the list of components. If I want to know what is, the list of vulnerabilities, if I want to know exactly what is this vulnerability, I expand the information of the list and I get a description of this vulnerability. If I want to know what is the component affected, then I get the component section and we got more information like the CVSS indicators. This is the score of the CVSS. What is the CVSS score? Well, this is a complex formula developed by the CVSS, and it will tell you how dangerous is a vulnerability on a component. It will go from 0 to 10, and the closer it is to 10, then the dangerous is for the project. There are two base values, which is the impact metrics and exploitability metrics. Again, the closer is to 10, the dangerous is for the project. There are two versions of this formula. One is the version 2 and the other is the version 3. And the difference between version 2 and 3 is that 3 is more granular and it's including more variables to the formula. So let's suppose, okay, I want to know what is the remediation for these vulnerabilities. Okay, you can always click on the CVE link and it will take you to the NIST database. This is a very useful web because it's from the National Vulnerability Database. It's a US government web that tells you all the vulnerabilities and it will tell you the information for the vulnerability that you open this link. So you got description, advisory, solution, and tools. So if you want to remedy the situation with this vulnerability, always go to the NIST database link. And we can continue with life cycle, which is where you control the integration with, for example, a pipeline. So if you are doing incremental scan on the Q1, remember we have baseline for complete scan, and then you have the delivery for the incremental scans. Um, if you want to control those delivered results, you can go to lifecycle. Why we have lifecycle separated from code security and code analysis? It's for a very good reason, and it's that we have something that we call audits. That is why you have green hand and red hand. An audit is a set of criteria that you can configure. Then you say what is the threshold to pass the evaluation of the criteria. You say is okay, 100% is the value of the audit. Then the threshold is 80%. I need to pass 80% of the criteria. I said if your partial scan or incremental scan is passing the audit, then you will get the green hand. If it is not passing the audit, then you will get the red hand. When you integrate Kiuwan in your pipeline, let's say TFS, we have multiple plugins for different pipelines. But for example, talking of TFS for Azure DevOps, we have an option which is fail on Q1 audit fail. And what it's going to do, that button, is that after the scan, we go for an audit. And if you don't pass the audit, then you can break the build, or if you pass the audit, you complete the build. So you are not only including a scan with that plugin on your project, but you're also controlling the pipeline based on the results of the audit. If you want to configure that audit, you can go to audit management, and here's where you put the threshold. In checkpoint is where you add the different criteria to evaluate and the weight of each criteria for the whole audit. So here's where you configure the audit itself. And another thing you can do with the audit is that if you pass the audit for an incremental scan, when you expand the information of this incremental scan, you get, of course, the metrics for it, but you got the promote to baseline button. And this is a button that tells you, okay, do you want to make a merge and create a new baseline based on these changes? If you're okay, then you hit promote to baseline. This button will be always enabled when you have the status of the audit okay. If you don't have the status of the audit okay, you need to force it. You click start for promotion and you click the promote to baseline. So when you hit promote to baseline, Kiuwan will tell you what is the baseline name. Let's say I had version 1, then I'm going to create version 2. And when I click promote to baseline, it will replace everything I have changed on this incremental scan. It will keep what hasn't been changed, merge, and create a new baseline that you will be able to manage in code security, code analysis. You will be able to create action plans, mute vulnerabilities, do all that we have seen in this demonstration. And the last section is governance, and governance is for high-level management. So when you have a lot of applications on board in Q1, it's always good to have a quick view on what is the performance of this application, what is the consumption in terms of licensing for all these applications, and all that information is available here in governance. We have, for example, all the applications in this platform are consuming almost 17 million lines of code. We have a risk index among all the application of 34.77, an average one-star security rating, very bad, and an average global indicator of 60.92, which basically it's what I told you. A global indicator is not always risk of security. We have good global indicator or average good global indicator, but bad security rating. Then you can see the information grouped by what we call a portfolio. A portfolio is a master folder where you can then create child folders. In this case, we have a master folder, which is provider, but we have other master folders. Then we have subfolders that we call the providers. We have a subfolder for South Africa, then other for Spain factory, Mills factory, Singapore, etc. So you can see the information of lines consumption, risk, security, and global indicator classified by portfolios. Then you can see what is the technical debt for the platform based on these portfolios. And we can see that China has the biggest technical debt because it's the one with the biggest project. However, having a big provider, in this case, is not always having the most important provider. If we want to see what is the most important portfolio, in our case, provider, on this platform is on the decision quadrant. So here's where we have metrics and tells you what is the impact or what is important for your business of each portfolio from very low to critical, and what is the risk index of that portfolio. So we see that all the elements that are on the left are on a very low risk index. That is the ideal scenario. All the elements that go to right are on a higher risk index. So what is the goal? To put everything to the left. However, if you want to prioritize prioritize the one portfolio over other portfolio, then you go and look at the vertical axis. So we have on the top of the risk Singapore, and we have also on the top of business value Singapore. So we have to pay attention to the applications of Singapore portfolio and move it more to the left by remediating the problems. As you can see, China has a big portfolio but has a low business value. And everything else on the governance section is summarized information. You got license consumption, activity, how many lines of code have changed on some specific applications or portfolios, and you can create reports. So if you want to generate a report with the general information of the platform, then you generate those reports here in the governance section of the platform. You can go to report management, and here's where you add a new report. You create a report. And that's Kiuwan in a nutshell. It's a very flexible platform, by the way. You can use it on a command line interface if you want to do automations. If you want to integrate with pipelines, we have plugins for it. If you want to use an API, we have an API for it. So that is, again, that is Kiuwan. If you have any questions, then it's time to answer these questions. So I'm gonna look in the chat and see if we have something. Okay, I think we have no questions. Rahul, if you want to ask something or add,
Yeah. Actually, I was curious. For that project that you were showing, right, in the governance, there was a business value associated with it. So how was it calculating that business value?
how do we set the business value is the question.
Yeah, yeah.
The business value is set when you create a portfolio. So in the
Mm-hmm.
portfolio, you assign the value of the business. It's not something that is done automatically. You have to configure this on the platform. I can show one moment, and let me just go to the platform once again. Just let me share my screen. Okay. Okay. So when we go to the applications management, we have the portfolio section, and
Okay.
here's where you add the portfolio. So once it's add, then you can edit. And okay, one moment. Okay, sorry, but I don't have the the permissions for the portfolio. But let me go to the application and see if that is there. So let me classify 1 second and risk profile. We put the risk profile. Here we have more information, business value. So here's where you classify the application. So here's one point. The risk index uh, is not only assigned to a portfolio. So a portfolio might have different application with different risk index. Okay, you can have an application that has low risk index in the same portfolio of the application of another application that has right high risk index. So the more high risk index application you have in our portfolio, the higher is the risk index for the portfolio. So you have to classify the portfolio, well, the applications that go into the portfolio. You have to classify the business value, and then Q1 will calculate the risk index for the
The risk
portfolio.
value, yeah. And whatever the highest risk value of the portfolio is, that is what will be assigned to the portfolio pretty much.
Exactly. Yes. If you have, for example, 10 applications, eight are low or
Mm-hmm.
not critical business value, and eight are critical, then the portfolio will be critical.
Got it. Got it. And
Okay.
one more thing that I wanted to ask you. So, how do you, so if, for example, someone gets Q1, so how do they know which rules to set up, why to set them up? What do these rules protect against? What
Yeah.
are like the biggest attack vectors that you need to kind of fortify against?
Okay. That's a good question. One moment. Well, if you want to know exactly what can be configured or not, first of all, it's important to know from business level what are you looking to remediate. So most of the time, the software factories or companies are based on normative. So many times they say, I want to have my application compliant with a specific normative. So you can go to Q1, hit on models management, and you go to the rules. But before going to the rules, you can or you need to create a new model or rule set. I call it rule set, but in the Q1 algorithm is new model. You put the name, description, and when you create it, it will be with zero rules active. Then you go to the rules section, and here's where you filter what do you want to use. If, for example, you want to follow a specific normative for this audit, then you select the rules that are compliant with the normative, for example, OSM, and
Okay.
Q1 will filter all the OSM rules. Then you enable this, activate all the rules, and then after activating the rules, what you have to do is to publish this rule set. So
Rule
when you
set.
publish
Okay.
the rule set, yeah, sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. When you publish the rule set, what you're going to do is to make available this analytical model or rule set to the developer. Another thing you can do to have it automated is that when you have the application in the platform, what you can do is go to application management, then you go to the options of the application and select model. So here's where you can do an association of the model that you create with the project that you want to scan. So you don't have to go to the advanced options every time you're going to run a scan and select, it will be automatically selected. So that is how you configure the rule set based on your needs. Maybe you want a rule set for language, a rule set for a normative, or something else that we can filter. In the models management is where you can do that.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. And one more question regarding your remediation. For once you do identify these issues, is it something that you guys give a snippet that this is how you showed that this is how it should be against what it is, right? So how do is it like every single vulnerability needs to be addressed separately, or is it something that can be clubbed together? That if you address this one vulnerability, then this one vulnerability will address like five or seven others, like if it has a cascading effect.
Yeah, that's part of what I shown in the. It's not applicable for all the vulnerabilities, but it's related with the propagation. That is why I showed
Propagation rules. Okay.
vulnerability type. So I can come back again to this propagation section. This is one of the propagated vulnerabilities is an SQL vulnerability. So when I click on this option, which is the propagation path, Kiuwan will tell me this is the way this vulnerability is propagated. So we have different points of or trigger or source of propagation. It's not only a single one. Everything that is in the top in this propagation path will be considered a source. Then it will have its own propagation. So if I take this source, then Q1 will tell me you have this propagation that is triggered on the line 133. Here is. So you can, if you remediate this vulnerability, then you can remediate all these vulnerabilities that are connected. And then that way you can remediate
Save time.
multiple vulnerabilities with a single fix.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Right. Any other question?
Uh, if participants have any other questions, please put them on the chat box. We'll try to get Dionisio to answer them.
Yep. If there is something that we cannot cover because of time,
Mm-hmm.
then we can always share information like user guides and documentation webs for any question. All right.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, Rahul, if there is nothing else to show, then I have stopped my screen. If you need something,
Mhm.
I can.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you so much for your quite a detailed presentation, Dionisio. Appreciate it. And if we do get any questions from the attendants, then we'll share that across, and we'll require help to get those get answers to those as well. And thank you so much for your time again, and thank you for all the attendees who joined for this interesting Q1 session. And looking forward to shifting left and having a secure development.
Nice, nice. Yes. Any question? If you want to get more information about Q1, always go to
Mhm.
Q1.com. There you will find information about what are we offering, how to integrate Q1 in your system, and more useful information. So do not hesitate. Go to the web. It's domain public, so everybody can look at the documentation. And hope to see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.